Hey everyone, welcome to the Mental Playbook with Christine Dalgity. We're here to chat about all things mental health, share some awesome stories, educate, and advocate to break stigmas and gain power through knowledge for all ages and walks of life, and give you the tools you need to boost your mental game. So grab a coffee, get comfy, tune in, get inspired, and let's dive into some fascinating conversations. Remember, your mind is super powerful, and with the right tools and knowledge, you can master your mental playbook. And while you're doing that, take care of you. Hey everyone, Christine here, and welcome back to the Mental Playbook with Christine Dalgity. Today I have Erin with me, and Erin is an occupational therapist, registered with the College of Occupational Therapists of Ontario. And I am so lucky to have her working as part of my team at DCMP, Dalgity Counselling and Psychotherapy. We call it DCMP for short. In Ontario, Canada, occupational therapists are allowed to practice the regulated health active psychotherapy. Scope of psychotherapy, there's 5 colleges that the College of Psychotherapists, registered psychotherapists, allow to practice it, and Erin is part of one of those colleges. So she wears different hats at the practice. She's a psychotherapist, does psychotherapy, and also does occupational therapy, and specializing in working with kids and for the OT and psychotherapy, and then the psychotherapy side, couples as well, and kids. So thanks for joining me today. And this is October. It is Occupational Therapy Month.
Mm-hmm.
So good timing for us to be doing this. I thought it was, this is really good timing. And Lily said, I planned it that way. I was like, and that's why you run the show. Yeah. I just show up. So thanks for joining us. And I think that, with occupational therapy, I know that I'm starting to learn a lot more about it. I think that a lot of people don't know what it actually is. So I want to touch upon some of that today. Mm-hmm. Also, to start, can you share a little bit about what drew you to occupational therapy in the first place? Because I know your bachelor's was psych, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, oh my goodness, that takes me back. So it was in high school, actually, that I did a co-op placement that was at a private physiotherapy clinic, and they had an OT there. And actually I was there to shadow mostly, during my co-op, to shadow mostly the physiotherapist and the kinesiologist. But then the OT was like, oh, you can shadow me for a day if you want. And I was just like, sure, because I had no idea what OT was.
Yeah.
And so I ended up shadowing her for a day, and then instantly was hooked to trying to figure out more about OT, just because I remember the client that I sat in with her on, was supporting a client through crisis, which was kind of interesting. So yeah, and I just was, I was just fascinated by it. And I was going to go the route of physio. I thought I was going to be a physiotherapist. And then that changed that day.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So had you already applied for psychology degree?
No.
Or did that come after?
That came after. Yeah, because I was going to do an undergrad in kinesiology or health sciences or something.
Okay.
And then, that completely changed everything after that. Yeah.
All right. And to become an OT, you do your master's in occupational therapy, is there any undergrad degree that is for OT, or that's why you do psych?
So you can the OT program to get into the master's, they just say that you have to have a 4-year undergrad degree. It doesn't matter what it's in. So in my program, when I went to school, my classmates, in the master's program, I had classmates that had come from, there was a lot that came from health science, psychology, sociology. There was some anthropology, but then there was also people that came from, they had done an undergrad in drama and dance, or it was kind of a range of things that people, their backgrounds. So, which was interesting, because and people struggled with different things, like the people that came from very science backgrounds, trying to understand more of the mental health side of, the course and what we learned. But then also people coming from like the very art side struggled with more of like the physical, anatomy and that kind of stuff. So
yeah, psychotherapy is like that too with our masters. Like with Yorkville where I went, you didn't have to have psych or, which always baffled me. But, like someone with a business undergrad, then going into psychotherapy, I mean, you're learning in your master's too, right? So, cool. Okay. I mean, I'm happy that you got a psych degree.
Yeah.
It helps. Yeah. Obviously, the master's in OT, you do mental health parts too, and we'll get to that. But it also helps with the psych stuff. So we get so many questions about like, well, what is occupational therapy? Because I know what it sounds like, and that's not what it is. So for the folks out there who aren't familiar, can you just kind of give us a quick OT 101? Like what is it all about?
Yeah. So I'll start with like what the term occupation means. So obviously we know like there's one meaning, which is like, job, which that can be a component of it. But when we're referring to occupation in occupational therapy, it's somebody's occupations is anything that they do in their life. So again, from basic like self-care, brushing their teeth, showering, to, meal preparation, leisure activities, like it's just anything anybody does in their day-to-day life.
Because we often get people that will call, and Kyla, our client care coordinator, will say, we have Erin, she's an OT, but she can practice the scope of psychotherapy. And they're like, or she's an occupational therapist, but she can practice the scope of psychotherapy. And so often it's like, it's not about my job. Yeah. It's not employment therapy. Yeah. We get that a lot. So we have a little thing for Kyla to read out, but yeah, that's interesting. So like occupational is like anything that you do.
Yeah, anything.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is what makes OT sometimes hard for people to kind of understand, because it is so broad.
Yeah.
Like it covers literally anything and everything. So
what are some of the services that you do? Like, I know what you do in our practice, but as an OT, like generally speaking, someone who just practices OT, like what are some of the services?
So somebody who just practices OT, it would depend on where they work. So OTs can work literally anywhere. There's OTs that work in hospitals. They can work in private clinics. They work in schools. So generally what an OT would do is to assess a person and figure out, okay, what are they experiencing difficulties with, and that would be whether it's coming from a physical, a cognitive, or like a mental health, illness or difficulty, whatever that might be. And then it's about finding ways to support that person through different strategies, assistive devices, accommodations, whatever it might be, to help that person be able to take part in their everyday activities.
So let's say you had a child that came in for OT. What are some of the things that you would do with that child?
So when working with children, I find it very helpful to have parents present, because I get a lot of information from the parent and what they're seeing at home. But then also what I would do with the child would be sort of seeing how they do things. So for example, if I have a child that comes in for OT that's having trouble with like fine motor skills, so those are, anything that we do with our hands. So like eating, handwriting, using scissors, whatever that might be. Picking things up. Yeah, I would do mostly like a lot of parents will say like, oh, this just seems like a lot of play. It is like very play-based and trying to, but as we're doing things, right? So I might get them to, like I might put some like beads on the table and ask them to like pick them up and put them in a little container. Yeah. So it does look like it's kind of play-based, but I'm also assessing, okay, how are they grabbing, the bead? Are they even able to pick it up? Are they using just their 2 fingers to pick it up, or are they using like trying to use their whole hand, right? So it's like seeing how they're doing that, and then based on that assessment, then I would do other things to see like how can they even hold scissors to cut paper? how do they hold a pencil, right? And just get them to like color or write their name, and then I'm watching how they're doing it. And then that gives me sort of like a baseline of where their functioning is at. And then what we'll do is implement strategies and essentially therapy to help them build up those fine motor skills if they're having trouble like with those more fine motor things. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that gross motor too, right? Like, do you look at like gait and stuff like that? Because I know every time I walk into we have one room that's like an OT room / group room / file room. And every time I walk in, there's more stuff in there. I'm getting them to build an addition onto the back of the office for Erin's stuff, right? Like there's the trampoline, there's like those almost looks like lily pads or whatever that they can, every time my grandkids come over, we have to get all that stuff out. But so there's gross motor, but also like sensory stuff. Cause I know you have a lot of sensory stuff in there too.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I would say I very rarely, like when I do get a kid for OT, it's very rare that I will do like an overall assessment, very like comprehensive, but usually parents have very specific things that they notice, whether it's come from them specifically or whether it's something the school's noticing. And so that usually gives me a starting point, but I will kind of take into account some of those other pieces, like the gross motor, because gross motor also can impact like our fine motor, right? If a kid doesn't have good core strength, they're going to struggle with like sitting at a desk and being able to do like handwriting tasks. So I will incorporate some of those, all of it, and even like the sensory piece too. So
and then seniors, I know we've talked, you do like stroke care, so that would be like mobility stuff, eating, that kind of stuff.
Yep. So actually,
there's more than just the stroke care with seniors, obviously.
Yeah.
But
so it's actually interesting, and I learned this during one of my placements, that when it comes to, so obviously we work very collaboratively with other disciplines. Yeah. When it comes to kids, OTs are actually much more involved in feeding and swallowing. Which is interesting, whereas in the adult population, it's SLPs or speech language pathologists, which I thought was interesting because I would have thought SLPs covered it all, but I actually did a placement at CHIO in their feeding and swallowing, and it was us OTs doing all of it, so which was really cool, actually. But yeah, so when working with like the older adult population, it would be helping them, like one of the big things is if they've had some sort of medical event, OTs work very collaboratively with physios to get people up and moving, get them any devices that they need, so like a walker or a wheelchair. Typically physios do walkers, OTs will do wheelchairs.
Ergonomic,
so fitting kind of and measuring people, making sure they're fitting in the wheelchair, getting them the right wheelchair. So there's lots of different kinds. The seat in the wheelchair, making sure it's something that's suitable for the person. So there's lots of that. And then the big piece for occupational therapy as well is when people are transitioning home. So it's doing like a home assessment, and what do they need? Are there any safety concerns? Like rugs are a big one, that they're tripping hazards, right? Or bathrooms. So if they have like a tub shower, are they even able to get into it? And are there ways to modify, like, so adding in grab bars to help them? Or is it, that they maybe need a full bathroom renovation so that they can, be wheeled in on like a commode or like a shower friendly like wheelchair or something. So it's kind of like doing that too, that assessment. So sometimes what OTs will do is they'll come in and do an assessment of the home, even actually prior to the person going home, just to see, like, is it even a possibility for them to come home? And then if so, then they'll make initial recommendations, and then they'll do an assessment with the person in home to just make sure that they're actually able to get in and out of the shower safely, use, the kitchen safely, like, and just basically make sure that they're able to do what they need to do.
Okay. And I know, like, previously you worked with motor vehicle accident clients, victims, not victims, clients.
Clients,
and then I know that, we've talked, there's like even like ergonomics, like during COVID when everyone was at home, ergonomics of chairs and everything for offices and stuff like that. There's so many things that I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Right?
And when I worked with clients that were in, so I motor vehicle accidents, I also did some work with like veterans and Canadian military as well, which is like it was a bit like similar in ways, but also kind of different in some of the things we do. But with motor vehicle accident, there was a lot of, I would say, a mix of everything. So a lot of physical, because if people had physical injuries, a lot of cognitive stuff. Like so if they had brain injuries, and like helping people with cognitive rehabilitation, and then also the mental health component too. So even in that position, kind of wearing all of those different hats. And again, kind of similar in the sense that we would often get called when people they were like still in hospital, and we would get called to do an assessment. So we would do part of the assessment in the hospital with the person, and then we would go to their home and do the second part of the assessment to, again, make sure that they could go home and what they needed, etc. And then we would follow them for quite a bit of time as they progressed, and would just make sure that, they were still functioning at home. And then again, eventually with like return to work or return to community activities, we would be involved in that as well.
A lot of different hats.
Right.
And then there's the ADLs, or activities of daily living, just, feeding, bathing, dressing, all of that too. And I guess there's devices for that too, right? Like I know different devices that I see to help people put on shoes and pull up their pants and pick things up and that kind of stuff. Okay. That's a lot.
And then there's also, broad. I will add in, there's also IADLs, so instrumental activities of daily living, which are like,
I just learned something new.
Which are like those bigger, like, so helping somebody with like managing money, right? So sometimes with like older adults, like after they've had a stroke, are they still able to, manage their money well, like, those kinds of things. So kind of helping them, like what we would maybe do is do like an assessment with them and give them different tasks, here's your grocery list, and here's like I know everything's online but give them like a flyer for a grocery store and be like, okay, like you have $60, like, plan and see what you can get from your grocery list, and try, and just some of those like different cognitive type tasks to see how do they do. And sometimes we will take people into the community to do those things, which is it's pretty fun actually to like go out and about and like and see how people do those things.
So cool. People really don't know what OT is all about. They don't with that, what are some common, we've talked a little bit, but misconceptions that you've come across in your profession? Like obviously the occupational part, but
so yes, people thinking that we're like job coaches, or that we only work with people for getting them back to work, or sometimes even people think that we do like helping them find work, or what is that, like job matching, like where people do those like they think which
like headhunters and stuff like that.
So that's like one of the biggest ones I would say that I've come across anyways. I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've come across in terms of like misconceptions. I think one of the things is that people just don't know. I guess one of the other things would be is if somebody knows, and I've heard this before, if somebody knows like an OT, like maybe they've had experience where an OT has worked with like a child in the school and they work on handwriting. And then when they hear that like an OT can also help older adults with like, functioning in their home and like safety and that kind of thing, people kind of get a bit confused because they're like, well, I only thought like OTs work with children, or, I only know that OTs do like this. And so I think that's the other thing, is that OT is so broad that people don't realize like we can work with any population doing anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's another one.
Yeah, and I know that working in the school system for so long, and we had OTs in all the time, especially kids on the autism spectrum and stuff like that. And I mean, I knew that they did other things. I knew, but until, you started working with us and asking you questions and making posters to explain to clients the differences and everything, I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like, it is really broad. You guys are like masters of so many different things. But also, I mean, I obviously with what I do, I can see how mental health and occupational, like mental therapy and occupational therapy can go hand in hand. And so trying to just wear your OT hat, because I know it's hard because you do psychotherapy as well, but just wearing your OT hat, how do you see an occupational therapist supporting, so maybe in your previous roles, right? Supporting people's mental health and well-being.
Yeah. Okay. So just wearing my OT hat, I feel like they blend quite well, but I would say the one thing that I, as an OT, that I think that I bring forward to working with people when it comes to mental health is, obviously we know mental health has an impact on people in many different ways. And one of the big things is like, are they even able to engage in the things that they need and want to do on a day-to-day? So one of the things that I often do, regardless of whether it's like OT or if it's like psychotherapy, it's like I like to understand all aspects of a client. So, when I meet with kids, for example, it's like, okay, we talk about school, we talk about home, and we talk about community. Like that's kind of how I frame it. And that's very much like an OT assessment, is like covering all those bases. And so it's like understanding what are some things that people are having difficulty with, right? So, are kids having trouble with just even getting to school? Or, are they not wanting to participate in leisure activities because they're super anxious about it? And then same with adults too, right? Work obviously instead of school typically. But yeah, it's kind of just what are people having trouble engaging in, and then how can we find different tools and strategies to help people take part.
Yeah. And I mean, I talk all the time about how physical health and mental health are so connected. They go hand in hand together. And when one's impacted, the other is also impacted. And I guess like looking at, motor vehicle accident people, clients, or, people who have had health events and everything, chronic pain and mental health is, I mean, it impacts your mental health so much. I have clients with chronic pain and it's just, they feel it's crazy making, right? And I know I have a bad shoulder and sometimes it flares up for a couple of days and I'm like, oh, and it's been a couple of months and I'm like, it's making me feel insane sometimes. So, I guess after an accident or something like that, there must be a lot of mental health work in it too.
Oh, absolutely. Because after like an accident, there's, not only the pain aspect, but also like people struggle with the lack of independence and having to be dependent on other people, right? If they're going home, they've broken their leg or their hip or something and they're going home in a wheelchair, right? They're just like all of a sudden they now have to adapt to, and it is typically temporary for the most part, but, there is that big mental health component of like even just that. And then as people, begin to recover, some of those other pieces start to come forward, right? Like potentially like PTSD from post-traumatic stress disorder, for anybody that doesn't know, but PTSD for, just the accident in general, right? So getting people back into cars and, a lot of like driving anxiety. And so that tends to be one that kind of we see a little bit come after, like when people are starting to get back into some of those things, or even just, that a huge fear of something bad happening. Sometimes like fear of like death comes out, right? So, they've had this big traumatic accident and they just assume no matter what they do that, something else is going to happen. So we see a lot of that kind of.
For sure. And when we're hurting or whether it's pain or independence or, it's temporary, but it feels like it's permanent, right? So that can really impact mental health.
Yeah.
And even with little ones, with the fine motor, with being at school, all of that kind of stuff, that can affect their mental health as well. So, I mean, now you work in a psychotherapy practice, and we also offer OT services as well as, that's why you wear two hats. It's also kind of cool, and I often tell people, you know, when they come for OT, but there's also some anxiety and stuff for their kids, and I say, here's what's really cool about Erin. She's an OT, but because she can practice the scope, she can switch back and forth and she can implement what works, right?
Yeah.
So you work alongside mental health professionals. You work alongside psychotherapists. What does that collaboration look like when you do your OT and your, I mean, I know between us, but what does it look like?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting because there was one, Jade had reached out to me. She's reached out to me a couple of times actually, where she'll ask me for specific strategies for like sensory.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting, right? Like when we, you know, just even to be able to collaborate on those things, like if I have like strategies or suggestions for how to support a child, like if Jade has kind of tried maybe some other things, but is seeing like, you know, there's just maybe something missing that this kid would benefit from, right? And so just even being able to give some of those like tips or strategies to help in like, you know, a sensory aspect, you know, like, so for example, like kids that maybe become like dysregulated, right? We obviously have certain strategies that we might use to help them with regulating themselves. But one thing that's kind of like a sensory strategy as well is like deep pressure. So sometimes giving like big bear hugs, or, you know, wrapping a kid in a blanket like a burrito, or like just like little things like that, you know, and then I think having that conversation with Jade, she's also been able to kind of add those to her toolbox in a way to,
for the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, I have a trauma client that is now going to be going to you for OT as well. So there's a lot of collaboration. Yeah, there is collaboration. I think that as we go along, we'll probably have more collaboration because just in the last few months, we've had a lot more OT clients reaching out. Yeah. And maybe we'll have more after this. Who knows?
Well, and it's nice to be able to work alongside others, like even just beyond, like obviously I have everybody, like all of you guys that I work with, but just even some of the there's other, you know, like I have some clients who have, you know, like an ABA therapist outside of, you know, seeing me, or they will have like a speech therapist, or, you know, also physios. Like, so it is nice to know, even if we are, you know, I'm able to focus on more of that OT aspect because I know there's other things that are being helped. So for like mental health, for example, right, if a client's seeing you for like PTSD, right, then I can focus on some of those other pieces, you know, in combination. And I think, again, we may talk about this, but collaboration I think is very important. And I love to collaborate with others because, I mean, we don't want to be duplicating services, but we also don't want to be working like against each other.
That's right.
So
in isolation.
Yeah. So I like being able to know, okay, what are your goals that you're working on with the person? What are my goals that I'm working on with them? What ones overlap? What ones are like completely different? And how can we kind of work together to make sure that we're offering complementary services?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. You know, I can't remember. I think it was in the spring. And I had that senior client who was having some difficulties, memory stuff. And then this client went to see you to do some memory assessments and different things like as the OT, which I think that's the first time we really like, I mean, we've had, you know, same clients, but really did that collaboration where I did the mental health piece and you did the OT piece. And that I thought that was pretty cool, putting it all together. Yeah. So what would you say is the most challenging part about being an OT?
Okay, I have two answers off the top of my head for that one. So one is kind of more of like a broader one, but insurance funding. So one of the things that OTs are strongly advocating for is to have OTs be included on like just even private insurance, because we're not. So, and
some, but not. Yeah.
It's definitely improved, I would say, for sure. But
yeah,
I think that sometimes can create a bit of a barrier to just people accessing services because, if they don't have coverage for it, it can be a lot to pay like out of pocket for it. So I would say that can sometimes be a pretty big barrier. There is also some of the organizations that I'm involved with, like CAOT, so the Canadian Association of Occupational Therapists. They're doing a lot of advocacy for even having OTs be recognized under, like if people have coverage for like psychotherapy, having like a registered OT, just given that we can practice psychotherapy, having us recognized under that for funding too, because, that's a big one. So that's one challenge that I've come across for sure. Another challenge I would say just for and this might just more be me, but I feel like when I have somebody come and there's so many things to work on, I find sometimes it can be hard to, you just want to address all of it and help that person. So it's like being able to like take a bit of a step back just to be like, okay, what's like maybe the most important thing, and just like continuing, to help that person reach their goals, which is where it comes in, where we focus on like what is important to that person and what do they want to start with. But yeah, sometimes I think that might just be my own thing too, but I feel like OTs again can help with so many different areas of life.
For sure.
That sometimes like somebody might come to me for something and I might notice something else that they could like benefit from, but I have to just like also remember to like what's important to the person. So
for sure. And you're young too, and you're like, enthusiastic and trying to find, and you're also someone who's you do dig, like you do look at the whole helicopter view. And I know that about you, that you want to help the client. You want to, Kathy said to me the other day, one of our therapists said to me, we were talking about something and Erin just like pulled out these things and I was like, holy crap. Right? She just like, she saw so outside the box and she was like pulling these things together. And and as far as the insurance goes, since I'm the one doing the billing, I noticed that. But it's, just for psychotherapists, registered psychotherapists, the College of Registered Psychotherapists in Ontario didn't start till 2015. And so it took a few years. And I know that I had to have supervision from a psychologist because they were covered, and under supervision, the client would be covered because the psychologist went over everything and was directly impactful in it. It took a few years. Now most insurances cover us. And now I'm being asked to supervise people because I'm a clinical supervisor so that they can, so I have, social workers are usually covered, but I have a social worker that I'm starting to supervise. I have a behavior, I can't remember what it is, BACB, behavior, like for kids on the spectrum that Jade was supervising, and now she's on mat leave, so I'm supervising so that it can be covered, and you, so it can be covered, right? So it's kind of this full circle thing. So hopefully occupational therapists will be covered soon too. So on the flip side of it though, what keeps you inspired and motivated?
Well, I mean, obviously one of the biggest things is just like helping people and seeing people achieve their goals, right? Like, so being able to, when, like a kid is able to go to school and they are so excited to come back and tell me like, I'm going to school. And I'm like, this is like, it's just to see them like where they started. And it felt like for them, from their perspective, it was like, the most impossible thing. And then for them to be able to do it and then feel proud of themselves.
Absolutely.
Super rewarding. Like, I love that. I think the other thing that I just like the creativity aspect of it. Like, I like being able to work with clients, and I mean, obviously it helps when I work with kids because like that, adding that creativity and is, they love that too. So, but it's being able to be creative, again, think outside the box, and like, just try to think of like novel ways of supporting, anyone with whatever it might be. So that kind of adds some excitement.
So like the challenge of it too, right? Adds excitement, like trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, somebody presents with a problem and then it's like, okay, how am I going to, help this person, and sometimes people say like, I've tried this. And then I'm like, all right. And trying to come up with like new ways or things that they haven't yet tried. And that definitely keeps my brain active and just like thinking, and it's never boring. Like it's just.
Yeah, I think I say that like 3 times a week, right?
Yeah.
I know, guys, it's never boring here, right? It's always keeping you on your toes and challenging and I mean, as you guys all know, I'm somebody who, I'm a psychotherapist. So like just figuring out the whys and then putting stuff in place to change it so that someone feels successful. That light bulb moment when they're like, oh, or the moment when they're like, they come to me and they're like, guess what I did?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think yesterday I had 2 clients that was like, I could not wait to see you because I had to tell you all these good things.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love that. Because I think the other thing is that people often, and I hear this from kids too, right? That they often think that they're coming to me because they're bad or there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to be able to like celebrate those wins too, right? To know, that they have achieved something and that they feel proud about it. But that's why I also like to have that balance too of like, you are here to see me because there are some challenges going on, but I also really like to get to know the kids that I work with, like, on a personal level. Like,
for sure.
Some of them tell me, they love playing hockey or, all the activities that they like doing. And it's like, I love hearing about that. And I always make sure that when I check in with them, I'm like, yeah, so how's hockey going? Or how's soccer going? Or have you made any like creative projects or like, done anything fun to keep that like positivity to it. So it doesn't feel like they're just coming to tell me, the challenges. Like we also talk about the positives too. So,
for sure. Yeah. For sure. So with psychotherapy in Canada, every province has its own regulation and has, and the reason a lot of stuff wasn't covered was because like in Ontario, we're registered psychotherapists. In other provinces, you could be named psychologist. Others, it's mental health worker. It's, mental therapist. There's all different. And so there's different rules. There's different things that people can do. There's all of that. So is there anything unique about being an OT in Ontario compared to other, like, do you experience the same kind of thing? Because it's so confusing.
That's a good question.
Or do you know about?
I know. I know. So, well, one thing I know is that sometimes actually the programs themselves are a bit different.
Okay.
So in Ontario versus like other provinces, I know when I was looking to apply to do occupational therapy, the master's program, some other schools in other provinces have certain requirements. So they require you to have like certain science courses like biology or anatomy, those kinds of things. So there is sometimes different requirements that way, even just to get into the program. Whereas in Ontario, it's different. I know in Quebec, you have, in order to be registered as an occupational therapist, you have to be French speaking.
Okay.
In Ontario, you do not. I believe though in Ontario, if you want to add certain languages to your services, I think there's testing that you have to do to prove that you can speak those languages. But yeah, Quebec, I know you have to be French speaking, I believe, I think. Okay. And there's also some rules in terms of if you're able, if I had a client that lived in Quebec, they would have to come to where I am. I can't see them even, like it's sometimes tricky with like virtual sometimes.
Yeah, same with us, yeah.
Yeah, so.
We have to get permission from that. If some provinces don't have a regulatory body for psychotherapy, but in some places we do have to get permission from that regulatory body to see clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as I know, though, in terms of like the title, I don't know of any other titles other than occupational therapist. They're very strict about the title, so I think it's pretty consistent across most provinces.
Yeah, with mental health and stuff, it can be so many different things, right? So,
yeah.
So do you see this field evolving over the next few years? Like, hopefully you'll be covered under employee insurances, but like here at home, like not Alma, but like Canada, Ontario, do you see this field evolving?
I think so, because I feel like even just since I started, like I graduated in 2019, I feel like even just over the past 6 years, holy moly, I feel like there's been so much. Like I feel like there's even been, I know there's been I've seen a lot kind of with OTs taking more of a proactive approach in terms of supporting people. You know, so doing a lot of courses on like home safety for, you know, older adults, right? So just even like educational courses on, you know, things for them to be aware of, right, that are potential hazards, and you know, helping people to stay in their homes longer, right? So like things like that, I think we'll kind of see a bigger, you know, push in that way for OT. But we're also seeing OTs enter into new areas. So OTs in like emergency departments, for example, right? So there is
That's
like,
cool. That's interesting.
Yeah. So there is more sort of also finding different areas. The other thing that I do is I supervise occupational therapy students at the University of Toronto, which is pretty cool too. But a lot of the supervision that I do is they're doing placements in areas that there's no OT. So they're kind of carving out those roles of what OT could look like. So for example, like the students that I supervised most recently were in end of life care. So hospice, palliative, and which was actually quite cool to you know, what the OT students were able to create to implement OT for the clients that they were working with. So just like different things like that, right? Just I think OT is very like thinking outside the box and
for sure,
kind of getting into different areas and seeing what the needs are, and then, you know, kind of filling in those gaps.
Yeah, for sure. And I was just going to touch upon the fact that I know that you supervise OT students, occupational therapy students. This can kind of be a two-part question, or either or. So either what advice do you, or what advice would you give somebody that is considering wanting to go into occupational therapy, considering a career in it?
I'd say do it. No.
Do it?
Do
I thought you said don't do it.
Oh, no.
I was like,
oh my gosh,
well,
imagine.
Let's scrap this podcast.
No, I would say, what advice would I give somebody? I mean, this would just be general advice to like probably anybody, but I would say, you know, explore, do your research, see if it's something that you're passionate about, you know, and that the nice thing about OT, well, I feel like with, you know, even psychotherapy, like there's so many different areas that you can work in. Like I honestly thought my career was going to be working with people who had been in motor vehicle accidents. Like I thought that was my like, you know, and actually funny because when I started school, I went in thinking, you know, I don't want to work with kids and I don't want to work in mental health. Here we are.
And then I came along.
Yeah. So, but I think it's just like going into it, keeping an open mind. You know, I know some of my classmates were worried because we got a lot of, like half of our schooling was placement, but we only got 4 placements, and obviously you can't do everything. So I know a lot of my classmates were worried about coming out and not feeling prepared to work with certain populations. And I think the biggest thing is that school is to teach you, you know, that give you the foundation of what you need. And as long as you can build relationships with people, you can, you know, assess what people's needs are. And then you know how to do the research and find out, you know, strategies, tools, etc. You can work anywhere, really, truly, you know, because I did have experience from my placements working with kids, but I would say a lot of what I've done working for you with like the kids that I'm working with has been, again, obviously like learning from you and learning from Jade in large part too, just even my own, what do I not know and what do I need to figure out and how can I even do that? So
knowledge is power.
Yes.
I always say that.
Yes.
So educate yourself in what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Is there something that you wish that more people knew about with occupational therapy?
Well, yeah, I would say just like, I guess just what we do, because I think even though OT has been around for, I think it's over 100 years now, like, which a lot of people find hard to believe because really people don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely been more awareness, I would say. Like people are getting, learning more about it and understanding more, but yeah, we're not as well known. Like you hear the word physio, you kind of automatically know what that is, right? So just like knowing more and like asking questions, right? Because usually whatever question you might have, an OT can probably help you figure it out. So
for sure, yeah, I think just people knowing what OT is, right? Because like I said, I'll admit it. When you first started, I was like, okay, so what exactly, right? Because I was thinking more of the psychotherapy part of it because I know you, so I knew that there was mental health component to the OT, and I know that if the College of Psychotherapists say that OTs can perform the act of psychotherapy, you must have some experience with mental health. But just like learning, I think that would be like, I think that so many more people would utilize the services of an occupational therapist if they knew exactly what you did, for sure. Yeah. So just to wrap things up and everything, I just wanted to do something fun a little bit. Well, I think it's fun, but I'm a psych geek. I know that, if I could have coffee with anybody living or who's passed, there's two people like with psychotherapy, right? Like with mental health, not in my personal life, in my professional life. I would want to have coffee with Gabor Mate for sure because he's so brilliant, trauma and everything. But he's still here, and Aaron Beck. Aaron Beck, he died a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I think, at the age of 101. Yeah. But he is who developed CBT, and now his daughter Judith, and then her daughter and stuff. They all do it, but I would love to sit and have coffee with him and pick his brain and everything, right? Both of them. Is there anybody in the field of OT that you would love to just sit and pick their brain, have coffee with?
Actually, well, and she was a prof of mine at the University of Toronto, but Helen Politanko, she's she's amazing. She primarily worked with children on the autism spectrum. And I feel like just I remember some of her classes, like just her knowledge of kids, her approach to working with kids, like it just, like if I could just like pick her brain about, like some of those things, I think be pretty cool. Yeah, it's fascinating. Like OTs really do have, just like those creative minds. So I feel like just, talking, and learning from them. I mean, I was fortunate to have her as a prof, awesome. Which was pretty cool. So, but yeah, of course, you always feel like if you can't always have those conversations of like asking questions because you feel like she's busy and,
for sure,
like,
for sure.
feel like you're bothering.
Yeah.
But no, that would be somebody that's kind of top of mind. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Is there any book or podcast or resource that you would recommend to people to learn about OT?
So, I would say the two like organizations that really like one is the Ontario Society of Occupational Therapy, so OSOT, and then there's the Canadian Association of Occupational Therapy that They do a lot of advocacy and, again, just promoting occupational therapy. So they have lots of really great information and like resources, and they often put out different like webinars or things that people can join to learn more. Since it is OT month, they're doing a lot right now to promote OT and like learning more about it. So those are usually like honestly the two go-tos that I like encourage people to kind of check out, because they also help to connect you to just like answer, like they have lots of FAQs and answering questions, and those would be like the two, and they have links to different like resources and stuff that people can.
Okay. You heard it here. It's Occupational Therapy Month. Check out these things. Learn about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. And, I really do think, you know me, you know that I'm about a holistic approach, right? And using different disciplines, multidisciplinary approach. And I think that OT and psychotherapy go hand in hand. So, it's amazing having you on staff and being able to offer all of these and utilize both of these skill sets that you have, and sometimes with the same client, and sometimes in collaboration. So I'm really glad we did this today, and it being OT month as well is super cool, even though I'd like to say that it just was like serendipitous, but it wasn't. It was planned. I thought it was serendipitous. Now I thought it was so cool, but Lily burst my bubble. But I do thank you for being on. I'm going to make Lily go into labor over there. She's laughing. Be prepared though, because I'm going to want you to do some more podcasts with us. This is, I think, the third one that you've done now. Not all have been aired yet, but since Lily is having a baby, we're stockpiling some of them. So again, thank you for joining us. I hope we were able to provide you with a better understanding of occupational therapy, what it is, how it works. And if you have any questions, drop us a comment. I can always forward it to Erin, because I probably won't be able to answer the OT ones. And if you know somebody who might need an occupational therapist, who might find this information interesting, or who wants to become an occupational therapist, might find this interesting, please share it. Follow us on Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube. And as always, take care of you.